In the beginning, love often feels like a whirlwind, sweeping us off our feet and enveloping us in a euphoric haze. It's easy to overlook the subtle signs that hint at deeper issues lurking beneath the surface. When Emma first met Jake, everything about him seemed perfect. He was charming, attentive, and had a smile that could light up the darkest room. They shared laughter over coffee, exchanged stories late into the night, and each moment felt like a promise of something beautiful. Yet as the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the initial enchantment began to blur, revealing cracks that had been there all along.
At first, it was the small things that Emma brushed aside. Jake had a tendency to be overly critical, but she chalked it up to his high standards. He would comment on her outfit, suggesting she might look better in something else, or he would question her decisions, implying that she could do better. He just wants the best for me, she thought. The compliments were frequent and effusive, but they were always wrapped in a layer of critique. Emma found herself changing her wardrobe and second-guessing her choices, convinced that Jake's opinions were the key to her improvement. In hindsight, these early signs of control were masked as concern, a red flag waving quietly in the background. As their relationship deepened, Emma noticed Jake's jealousy creeping in. At first, it seemed sweet. He would express concern when she spent time with her male friends, claiming he just wanted to protect her. "It's not that I don't trust you," he would say. "It's just that I know how guys can be." His words, while cloaked in affection, started to feel suffocating. Emma felt guilty for wanting to maintain her friendships, as if her loyalty was being tested. The isolation crept in slowly. She began to withdraw from her friends, convinced that Jake's fears were valid. The vibrant social life she once enjoyed faded, replaced by a world that revolved around Jake and his insecurities. Then came the emotional manipulation, a tactic so subtle that it often went unnoticed. Jake had a way of twisting situations to make Emma feel responsible for his moods. If she had a bad day at work and needed to vent, he would turn the conversation back to himself, sharing how her stress affected him. "I can't handle your negativity right now," he would say, his voice laced with disappointment. Emma learned to tread carefully, often suppressing her feelings to keep the peace. The weight of his emotional needs became a burden, and she found herself walking on eggshells, afraid to express herself fully. It was a slow erosion of her self-worth, masked as love, but it left her feeling increasingly isolated and anxious. As time went on, the gaslighting began to seep into their conversations. Jake would often deny things he had said or done, leaving Emma questioning her own memory. "I never said that," he would insist, his tone dismissive. "You're just being overly sensitive." The confusion it created was disorienting. Emma began to doubt her own perceptions and feelings, wondering if she was indeed too sensitive, too emotional, or too demanding. The reality she once knew started to blur, and the man she had fallen for transformed into someone she barely recognized. It wasn't until Emma found herself crying in the bathroom one night, feeling utterly defeated, that she began to piece together the puzzle. She had lost herself in the relationship, her identity entwined with Jake's expectations. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. She had ignored the signs, the red flags that had been there all along. The love she had thought was so genuine was, in fact, a facade, hiding a controlling and manipulative partner. Determined to reclaim her life, Emma began to set boundaries. It was a daunting task, as Jake had grown accustomed to having control over her decisions. When she expressed her need for space and time with her friends, he reacted with anger and resentment. "You're choosing them over me!" he shouted, his voice echoing in the small apartment. The confrontation was painful, but Emma stood her ground, realizing that she deserved to have her own life outside of their relationship. It was a pivotal moment, one that would determine the course of her future. As the weeks passed, Emma felt a mix of liberation and fear. The more she asserted herself, the more Jake pushed back, revealing his true colors. He would resort to guilt trips, reminding her of all the sacrifices he had made for her. "You're being selfish," he would say, trying to manipulate her into compliance. But Emma had finally awakened to the reality of her situation. The love she once cherished had morphed into a toxic cycle, and she was no longer willing to be a prisoner of someone else's insecurities. The final straw came one evening when Jake's anger escalated to a point she had never experienced before. He shouted, his face twisted in rage, accusing her of betrayal for wanting to go out with friends. In that moment, Emma felt a surge of clarity. She realized that love should never feel like a battlefield, and she deserved to be treated with respect and kindness. With a heavy heart but a resolute spirit, she made the decision to leave. It was a painful choice, but it was also an act of self-love. As she walked away from the relationship, Emma felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The journey ahead would be challenging, filled with the work of rediscovering herself and healing from the scars of manipulation. Yet, she knew she was on the path to reclaiming her life, free from the red flags that had once gone unnoticed. The experience had taught her invaluable lessons about love, respect, and the importance of recognizing the signs before it was too late. Emma emerged stronger, ready to embrace a future where love was defined by mutual respect, trust, and the freedom to be her true self.